if I'm an American, yeah, I kind of expect Russia and Iran to want to mess with us and sow the seeds of discord. I really don't expect it to be the New York Times and the Washington Post and Politico, but I'll bet you most Americans would say they fear that more than they do foreign interference.
Trey Gowdy. Trey Gowdy, spitting truth. Always good to hear Trey Gowdy. It is a Thursday. Chris Plant has the day off for good reason. He will return tomorrow. It's Mike Opelka in one more hour here, sitting in for my friend. Trying to cover everything. We have monitored the aftermath of the horrific school shooting in Georgia yesterday. The 14-year-old accused shooter will be in court to be tried as an adult based on everything we've heard. The Trump legal team is facing Judge Tanya Chutkan today. And the Trump team is trying to argue with Judge Chutkan that the appointment of Jack Smith is not legitimate. Doesn't seem to be going too well. CNN is obsessed with that case today. And over at Fox, they're monitoring the Hunter Biden tax trial, which begins jury selection today. And I was asking the question earlier, is Hunter Biden going to be forced to sit through jury selection the same way Donald Trump was? Apparently he is. So that's a good thing. That is equal treatment. I think that's a good thing. But Hunter Biden could face 17 years in prison. He's charged with 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors. We know that's not going to happen. Let's be honest. Not happening. Hunter didn't pay taxes on $1.4 million tax fraud case. And so he's in trial, or jury selection at his trial. Well, we'll monitor it. I expect nothing out of that. It's going to be months, which means his dad will probably pardon him. Everybody says no. Come on now. Joe's not going to let his only surviving son go to prison. It's just not possible. Before we wrapped up last hour, we were talking about the indictment that came down against a Tennessee media company that is accused of having connections to Moscow and Putin and Russia Today, and it was election interference that the DOJ was telling us about yesterday. Oh, this is media manipulation, pay-for-play kind of money that was going into right-leaning outlets. Well, we played you a little clip from CNN this morning that had Vladimir Putin being translated, talking about it. And that CNN clip only had part of the story. There was another translation that is out there that I think you have to hear. It's really fascinating. There was another translation that told more of the story because Putin was telling the reporter that he didn't favor Trump. He favored Biden, and something happened. Let's hear it through the ears of the translator.
If we can name a favorite candidate, it used to be Joe Biden, but now he is not participating in the election campaign, and he recommended all his allies to support Ms. Harris. So that is what we are going to do. So it was, well, he said that we should. That is why we should also do that.
And I believe there is a second clip where Putin talks about Kamala's laugh and how he reads that.
Her laugh, she's laughing. Her laugh is so fascinating. It means that everything is good, and if everything is good, it means that, for instance, if we're speaking about Joe Biden, there are so many sanctions against Russia introduced, and if everything is good with Ms. Harris, maybe she'll refrain herself from such measures, or maybe she'll change them.
Yeah, see, Donald Trump is the sanction king. Donald Trump was tough on Russia. Donald Trump was the guy who squeezed Russia. Donald Trump's the guy who correctly said, yeah, Putin didn't invade Ukraine under me. So it kind of makes sense with this translation that Vladimir Putin is saying, hey, I was for Trump. I mean, I was for Biden, not Trump. And now that we've got Harris, I'm reading that her laugh is a good sign, a good indication that maybe these sanctions that Trump would put on us are all going away. It's an interesting thing to follow. We'll be keeping an eye on this. Very, very interesting. Who does Vladimir Putin want to win the election? I don't think he's in the tank for Trump, especially with all the stuff we have about the Biden family and its connections to Russia. Getting back to the question of Kamala Harris and the Second Amendment, especially as it relates to yesterday's big story, and today it still continues to be a big story, the shooting in Georgia. People are saying, well, Kamala Harris is going to be very tough if she gets elected as it relates to the Second Amendment. She has said in the past that she supports mandatory buybacks. Yeah. And she's also said that she's a big fan of the Second Amendment. I've never seen her with a firearm. Never seen her shoot a gun. Now, that doesn't mean she's not a fan of the Second Amendment. Not everybody who says they support the Second Amendment, your right to defend yourself, is out there with a firearm. But her own words tell us a different story.
Let us finally pass an assault weapons ban and universal background checks and red flag laws. Because we are clear on that point, it is a false choice to say you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and I know we need reasonable gun safety laws in our country.
So she says she's a fan of the Second Amendment, but does she or doesn't she want to take people's guns away?
What would you do about the millions of, specifically, assault weapons that are already in circulation? What do you do about those?
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It's got to be smart. We got to do it the right way.
So how does a mandatory program do it the right way? If it's mandatory, it's government forcing you. She is not a fan of the Second Amendment. She will not be a fan of the Second Amendment. She is one of the people who wants the Second Amendment to go away. She's talked many times about the buyback problem. This is not just one time with Craig Melvin. She's talked about it in other situations, even on late night television.
I'm prepared to take executive action and put in place a ban on the importation of assault weapons into our country. But we still have to deal with the over 2 million assault weapons that are currently in the streets of America. And so a buyback program is a good idea. If Congress fails to act, I'll give them 100 days to put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not do it, I will put in place by executive action a comprehensive background check requirement and a ban on the assault weapons and importation of assault weapons into our country. I'm done.
And that's why we will work to pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban.
Yeah, they're going to come after guns if she's elected. Absolutely, 100% guarantee. And they're going to do that especially quickly if she gets not just the presidency, but the House and the Senate. And here's one of my crazy theories that I've been talking about for about a week and a half now. I think the Democrats understand the weakness of Kamala Harris, and we're going to see it in less than a week during the debate, which we'll talk about because we have clips from Donald Trump in the town hall last night with Sean Hannity. Fascinating stuff happened last night, some really interesting comments. But if you look at the current numbers, we played you the clip from CNN where there is a huge chasm developing between Trump's biggest block of voters and Kamala Harris. He's starting to stretch a little bit into his lead. And I think the Democrats understand that they're probably going to lose the White House. the Democrat leadership. But Kamala Harris is akin to what the retail world calls a loss leader. I think she is the loss leader of political candidates. What do I mean by that? If you've worked in retail, you know what I'm talking about. A loss leader is a product that some people want, but it's too expensive. But if you put the loss leader in the window of the store and you say, we're going to sell this, it's usually $1,000. We're going to sell it for $1 tomorrow. People will line up to try and get the opportunity to buy that loss leader, that $1,000 product for $1. And the company knows they only have one or two. They put it in the far back corner of the store, and the people come in huge numbers, and they swarm the store looking for the loss leader, the deal. There's only a couple of them, but they still come. The big numbers still come. With Joe Biden, nobody was coming. They had a severe deficit in interest in this election. The Democrats were getting ready not just to lose the presidency, but because of the lack of people interested in Joe Biden. They knew he was brain dead. They knew he was a horrible candidate. They knew he was toast. They weren't going to show up in the polls in the numbers needed to retain control of the Senate and to win back control of the House. So by putting Kamala Harris in that spot, by appointing, anointing, coronating Kamala Harris to give her this opportunity to run, suddenly the Democrats ignited interest in a whole new class of voters who wanted to go out and vote possibly for the first female president. And these were people who would then vote for down ballot candidates. Before Joe Biden stepped out, before Joe Biden got pushed out, I should say correctly, it looked like the Democrats were really going to lose the election for president, but also suffer serious defeats in the Senate, as well as not be able to take back the House. So what they have done, I believe, what the Democrats have done, you can disagree with me if you want, 888-630-9625. What the Democrats have done, I believe, is to put Kamala Harris up front as the shiny object for a whole class of voters who just wants to believe, oh, we can vote for a woman of color. We can vote for somebody we've never had before. Never mind her policies are crazy. Never mind she's the farthest left senator ever, farther left than Bernie Sanders. We just want to be able to say we voted for that. And that will bring in more Democrat votes for Senate and for the House. I believe the Democratic leadership knows that she's a losing prospect. I believe the Democrat leadership is completely on board with the fact that she's not winning. But it's the only chance they have to retain control of the Senate and to maybe win back the House. And that's why so many people are saying this election is important, not just for the presidency, but for the down ballot voting. And why, as Donald Trump has said many times, it has to be too big to rig. So I'm calling Kamala Harris the loss leader for the Democrats. They're hoping to keep control of the Senate. Right now, it's kind of 50-50. In the state of Texas, Ted Cruz is in a race for his life. He's running up against a candidate out of Dallas, a congressional candidate out of Dallas who also played for the Dallas Cowboys, who's also a person of color, and Cruz is only 2 points ahead. It is a very tight race, and the hope to win back control of the Senate could be affected by how many people turn out just to vote for the lost leader, Kamala Harris. I got Trump's quotes from yesterday at the town hall, some pretty interesting stuff, plus your calls, 888-630-9625. Opelka in for Plant on the Chris Plant Show. It is the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. Just looking at some of the endorsements coming in fast and furiously here. We had the Liz Cheney endorsement yesterday for Kamala Harris, even though she declared her to be the most radical person she's ever seen, like ever, in the history of ever. And then there was the news yesterday that Kamala got yet another endorsement from a famous Republican last name. Check this out.
Sort of a surprise new endorsement from the youngest son of the late Senator McCain. So what motivated that?
Yeah, that's right. It's Jimmy McCain. He says just weeks ago that he changed his voter registration to Democrat. But Hoda, importantly, this is the first time that he is speaking out about Mr. Trump, a series of interviews responding to that controversy over the former president's visit to Arlington National Cemetery last week. Jimmy McCain, who served in the military for 17 years, just returned from a military deployment in Jordan, tells our Phoenix affiliate that Arlington, where generations of his family are buried, is, in his words, a sacred place and that it should be off limits for political activities of any kind. He also...
Jimmy McCain endorsing Kamala Harris and also raising some sand about the sanctity of Arlington National, even though his dad filmed a political video there. Just saying maybe he should study his family history. Just throwing that out there. And then I think Chris mentioned this yesterday, but the video had not come out yet. California Democrat Gloria Romero, who was a big deal in the state party, the Democrat Party, made a statement yesterday. So we'll see your endorsement from a Republican to a Democrat and raise you one.
In this Capitol behind me, I served as both Senate Democratic Caucus Chair and the Senate Majority Leader. But today I say goodbye. Adios. I've had enough. I am now another near lifelong Democrat who is joining the growing number of people, including key groups like Latinos, who are leaving the Democratic Party. This is not the Democratic Party that I once championed. I do not recognize it anymore, and I cannot continue. I changed my voting registration today as the sun was rising to Republican, which has, under Donald Trump, become the champion of working people.
Yes, she's right. She's right. Well done, Gloria Romero. Standing up for what's right and standing up in front of the cameras out in front of the Capitol in Sacramento. This is a good move. This is another list of Democrats which we should be expanding and keeping track of who are standing up for Trump. At the top of that list, Robert Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk. And Elon's ready to serve in the administration. He said so. I'll explain just around the corner. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It is The Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for my good friend Chris Plant. He will be back tomorrow, kicking off your weekend together. I'm just looking at a story. It's kind of a local story to the D.C. area about a 12-year-old Maryland boy who has broken into at least 5 car dealerships and stolen cars. He's 12 years old. They can't charge him with a crime. Why can't they charge him with a crime? 2 years ago, they changed the laws that said, you can't charge a juvenile with a crime. This kid, in 5 cases, breaking into 5 dealerships in the same county, stealing cars. And they've got him on video. Last week, they caught him. He came into one of the dealerships. There were people still there at work. He thought everybody had left. And when the cops showed up to arrest him, they discovered he's 12 years old. He can't be arrested. And in the irony of ironies, they are ordered to give him a ride home. So the kid trying to steal cars, and he's caught. He's on video, at least 5 dealerships that he broke into and stole cars from, and not cheap cars like Audis, expensive cars. When the cops finally caught him, they can't arrest him because the laws won't permit the juvenile to be arrested, so they gave him a ride home. We're upside down. We're going to fix that. That is completely messed up. That is totally wrong. And hopefully they will. Did you see Donald Trump last night? Donald Trump was on a town hall with Sean Hannity last night and talking about a lot of different things. A lot about Kamala Harris as well. And Hannity asked one of the questions to Mr. Trump about the forgotten men, forgotten women, because it was in 2016 the title of one of the themes of the Trump initial campaign was we're going to take care of the forgotten man, which is also a great book, by the way, by Amity Shlaes. If you want to read a great book about the Depression, the forgotten man. But here was Trump talking with Sean Hannity yesterday about the forgotten man. And is the forgotten man back in the campaign?
If 2016 was about the forgotten man and forgotten woman, what is 2024 about?
So it's not that different. It's still about the forgotten man and the forgotten woman. The people are being treated horribly in this country. We're a country that's being laughed at all over the world. And I'll be honest, if Joe Biden would be a great president, I would be happier than being the worst president in the history of our country, because I want to see what's good for the country. And I would have been very happy. I have very nice places I could be. This is not easy. I got shot at. I got hit. I could have been all over that place. I could have. But you know what? It's very simple. And it starts with make America great again. That's what we have to do.
It makes me think.
So the theme of Make America Great Again is obviously going to be at the center of the campaign, but Mr. Trump bringing up a really important point there, that he didn't need to do this. He doesn't have to do this. He could be living in his billionaire lifestyle, enjoying all his golf courses. We've seen him play golf. He enjoys golf. He's pretty darn good at it. But he has chosen to put himself on the line, and literally on the line, after July 13th. One of my favorite things about Donald Trump is his ability to pen nicknames or create the right nicknames. And one of the best nicknames, I think, is Mr. Trump's label for the head of ABC News.
I was presented with ABC George Slopadopoulos. You know who he is. And he's a nasty guy. And yet, he's a nasty guy. I've had him up to here.
Now, Mr. Trump holds his hand up to about mid-chest because Stephanopoulos is not the tallest guy in the room. And we agree. Michael and I were talking about this. We agree. Snuffleupagus was a good name for George Stephanopoulos, but Slopadopoulos is even better.
But let me tell you, he's a very, very bad kind of a guy. But I watched his interview of Joe Biden. It was like the softest interview I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's what you get. If you're a Democrat, you get the soft interview. We saw it with CNN last week. And we're probably going to see it again if there is another interview. We don't know if there's going to be another interview. Nobody stepped up and said, we demand an interview. They're all saying, oh, no interviews? Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll see you at the debate. We'll see you in the spin room after the debate next week. Please like us. It is embarrassing. The mainstream media should be ashamed of itself. They're not journalists. Yesterday, Donald Trump was talking about some of Kamala's proposals, her policies, which we got a little bit more out of her yesterday in New Hampshire. I should share some of those with you. But Mr. Trump was quick to point out the similarity between seriously failed economies and Kamala Harris's ideas.
Price controls, that's been tried in
many times.
The former Soviet Union, Venezuela, even in this country in the 70s, it was a disaster.
Yeah, every time it's been tried, no matter over hundreds of years, not just over hundreds of years, price controls, you end up with no product, you end up with massive inflation, and you end up with the destruction of a country.
How does this impact, how do high interest rates impact How does inflation impact everybody that's here?
Well, they can't buy a home. They can't do anything. Your business is stopped up. You can't borrow money. And by the way, I had interest rates at 2%. Now they're 10%, but you can't get the money. You can't get the money.
Well, he exaggerates a little to clarify. The interest rates on home loans were between 2 and 3%. If you had good credit and you had a good down payment, you got a great interest rate between 2 and 3%. Now it's a lot higher. I think I haven't checked in a while, but I believe they're closer to 7.5%, maybe down in the high sixes. That's still considerably higher than when Donald Trump was president. And inflation has caused the homes to be more costly as well. And how is she going to fix it? That's the question. How are you going to fix it? Are you going to fix it by doing what? Kamala thinks that she can tax her way to prosperity. She thinks she's going to tax people who've been successful, which, if you raise the corporate tax, which she's proposing, you're going to prevent more hiring, more expansion. Here's a little bit of what she was talking about yesterday, and she was trying to, this was in New Hampshire, where they bust in all the people.
Finally, my plan will make our tax code more fair while also prioritizing investment and innovation. So
fairness, again, this concept of fairness, which is so subjective. The fairness concept is not fair, but let's hear what she has to say.
Be clear. Billionaires and big corporations must pay their fair share in taxes.
So what is their fair share if the overwhelming amount of money eclipses the money paid by individuals? How is that fair? They never explain that.
Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's just not right that those who can most afford it are often paying a lower tax rate than our teachers and our nurses and our firefighters. It's just not right.
So here's this indignation that shows up again. It's not right that they're paying a lower tax rate. Never mind that you guys have been in charge. You guys could have changed the tax code. You guys could have pushed for a different tax code, but you didn't. They want to go after the people who are the most successful, and they want to change the rules. She supports a billionaire minimum tax.
I support a billionaire minimum tax and corporations paying their fair share.
It used to be millionaires and billionaires, and then so many of them became millionaires. So now it's just about those billionaires, those evil billionaires. There aren't enough billionaires, even if you confiscated all their money. There wouldn't be enough to put a dent in the deficit, in what we owe. But she is talking about expanding tax benefits for new businesses.
So first, we're going to help more small businesses and innovators get off the ground, okay? Now, I'm setting what some, I'm sure, are going to call a very ambitious goal, but you know what? I think we should admire ambition in each other.
Oh, the cackle. The cackle's back. She's cackling again. This means she's feeling confident.
So I want to see 25 million new small business applications by the end of my first term.
Now, she doesn't say 25 million new small businesses. She says new small business applications. I want to see those. You get those applications into me. And as she finishes that line, you can hear the cheering, screaming cheerleader who has obviously got a copy of the speech. And at every applause point, the cheerleader screams, "Whoa!" like it's some kind of frat party. Listen, right at the end of the line.
Business applications by the end of my first term. And to help achieve this, we will lower the cost of starting a new business. So here.
Gee, you've only been in charge for 3.5 years. How how did this not come up in the previous 3.5 years? That the cost of starting a business is just too darn high. You couldn't come up with this on day one? No, you were busy shutting down the American energy industry. You were busy opening the borders. It would have been so easy. Can you imagine if you'd had 25 million new businesses in the past 3.5 years that opened up? But no, it was too restrictive because of all the regulations. You were there, madam. You just didn't show up.
On average, it costs about $40,000 to start a new business in America. That is a great financial barrier for a lot of folks, and it can hold entrepreneurs back. And the current tax deduction for a startup is just $5,000. Okay?
So if the average startup costs $40,000 to launch, and you get a $5,000 tax credit, that's over 10%, a little tax credit. But Kamala wants to do more than that. She wants to increase that number. Just how big?
Then you got to make up the delta there. Got to figure out how you're going to do that.
Sure.
Not everyone has access to that kind of wealth and capital. So part of my plan is we will expand the tax deduction for startups to $50,000.
So how are they going to pay for that? That is now revenue that's not going to come in. So now you're going to get a $50,000 tax credit to start a business? That's more than the average cost of a business. I'd be interested to see how this works out. I can't wait to hear some economists talk about this. She didn't leave without giving us a word salad yesterday because, you know, that is part of every menu that we get from Kamala Harris when she's delivering a speech. We get a word salad. If you're European, you tend to get the word salad at the end. If you're American, the word salad comes at the beginning. And since it's the end of the show, almost, we'll pretend it's the European version and give you the Kamala Harris word salad. Please try and diagram this on your own.
Let us understand, which we do, our purpose at this very moment. Let us remember the broad shoulders upon which we stand and the traditions of this very fight that have led to what we have been able to accomplish.
Okay, I'm spinning. I have no idea. There's no way to make sense of that. I need to realign my brain and wrap it up and come back and put a bow on the show. It's Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It is the Chris Plant Show, and he returns to his own show tomorrow. Mike Opelka wrapping up a one-day guest hosting. Thanks for being here with us. Michael was there. Jasmine was there, keeping me propped up and on the straight and narrow. We just got breaking news. The Hunter Biden case out in California. Hunter showed up for jury selection proceedings today, and they're dropping some news that Hunter is changing his plea, which sounds like there's a deal. There is a deal. Apparently, they want to get this over and done with. And he was facing 2 felonies and 2 misdemeanors as relates to his non-payment of taxes on millions of dollars. So you have to wonder if there's a plea in the works. The government lawyers are telling Fox News and others, this is the first we're hearing of this. We're totally shocked. It's kind of a surprise. Really interesting. I wonder where this is going. And you have to wonder if there is a pardon somewhere waiting in the wings should Hunter take a plea deal to a lesser charge, and will this all then go away? The election is very, very close. It is palace intrigue every single day, is it not? Yes, it is. But this is a big stinking deal. Hunter Biden may have some kind of new plea deal working. We shall see. We'll keep our eyes on it. Let me grab one more quick call in here. So many of you have been hanging on. I'm going to go to line 6 and Mike in South Riding, Virginia. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Mike. Good morning. You talk about Harris being a loss leader. Assuming the 1% chance that the Democrats allow a fair election and she does lose, Trump gets elected, if the Democrats take the House and they either keep the Senate or they expand their lead, the first thing they're going to do in January, because they get sworn in like 2 weeks before the president does, is first thing they'll do is elect a speaker. Second thing they'll do is impeach Trump. And the Senate will then hold a trial before Trump even gets sworn in. And if they can convince enough Republicans to throw him out, he won't even be sworn in. And then they'll impeach Vance, because Vance will, they're not going to let him become president. And then the speaker will become president. And more than likely, that's going to be Hakeem Jeffries.
Okay, that's really good political math that you just laid out there. And it should inspire everybody, Mike. It should inspire everybody to make sure that, as Donald Trump has convinced us, this election has to be too big to rig. And I'm sure they're planning for every eventuality. But that is the goal, to get Jeffries in that speaker role and to keep Schumer in charge of the Senate. And I honest to God, don't believe Harris will win. That's why my lost leader idea came up. But that is some scary political chess. So thanks for bringing it up. It's a good reminder that we just have to vote and vote and vote and vote like our lives and our country depends on it. I have to give props to one of the vast and unpaid resource department here who wrote in and said, hey, Mike, we had no school shootings, subway shootings, theater shootings until we made those gun-free zones. Yeah, you know why? Because then the bad guys realized there were no good guys with guns in those places. Interesting. Makes sense. Thanks again to all of you. Chris returns tomorrow. Till next time, testudo, my friends. Testudo.